in 2018, there was, led by then Seattle City Councilwoman Kshama Sawant, a socialist, her whole shtick was about taxing Amazon, like Jeff Bezos, evil, horrible person. You probably remember this, right? It was very, very drama-filled. And at the time in 2018, they were pushing something called a head tax, where they were basically taxing businesses for each employee. And the way they were structuring it was that it was specifically levy additional taxes against businesses like Amazon. It was like a Jeff Bezos tax, right? So Amazon told them at the time, look, if you do this, there are going to be consequences. If you do this, we'll probably move jobs out of the city to a place that doesn't punish us for paying people well. So at that time when this debate was going on, I had Kshama Sawant on, I think, Fox 13 at the time to question her about this, and I said this.
You have called Jeff Bezos a bully. You have called the threat to take 7,000 jobs out of the city extortion. What if it's not just a threat? What if it's not just extortion and Jeff Bezos lets 7,000 jobs walk out of this city? Are you going to own that? Are you going to own that?
I think Jeff Bezos and Amazon should own it. But I think you asked a very important question, Brandi, which is that will they actually do it?
Are you okay with that if they take 7,000 jobs out of the city?
Of course not.
But blah, 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 word soup as normal. And that's exactly what Amazon did. So the head tax passed in 2018, but you'll remember they turned around and they promptly repealed it because it was like this huge backlash over it in the business community. But then in the summer of 2020, while all of us were distracted with the rioting and the Chaz Chop ordeal, the city council pushed through basically a different version of the head tax. It was called their payroll tax. It was a tax on high-paying jobs. So it was just it was a repackaging of the same thing that they'd passed in 2018, ended up repealing. So again, we're distracted by all these things, and the city council pushes through this payroll tax on high-paying jobs. And I said the same thing in 2020 that I said in 2018, and Amazon said the same thing in 2020 that it had said in 2018. If you target us out for taxation, there are going to be consequences for that. And as we've said during the current tax debate right now, what happens when you target employers and big businesses for taxation? What's going to happen? Well, they're going to leave, right? It does not take a rocket scientist. I'm not Nostradamus for predicting that this would go south for the city. And it's exactly what we're seeing right now. So there was a report that came out, the 2024 year-end revenue report that was released by the city of Seattle. And what does it show? Gee, anybody want to guess what it shows? Well, it shows that their collection of this payroll tax has plummeted. Why? Because businesses did exactly what they said they were going to do, and they took jobs elsewhere. Huge shock, right? So now the city's in this panic. Oh my gosh, we're in a budget crisis because we're not collecting the level of payroll taxes we expected to collect with our tax on high-paying jobs because the businesses told us they did exactly what they told us they were going to do 7-8 years ago. And now we're all surprised by it. Mayor Bruce Harrell came out, he said today's announcement that payroll expense tax revenues collected in 2024 were $47 million lower than projected, requires action to ensure our budget remains balanced. And then he goes on to say, and I will give him credit, I think he fell into some of the bad ways back when this was first being debated in 2018 and was trying to sort of appease a certain segment of progressives. But he's since been a little more business friendly. But he comes out, he says, this news also underscores why I have been consistent in noting the fragile nature of our economic recovery. I wish he'd been more consistent back then. We know this decrease in revenue is aligned with recent reports of major employers moving thousands of high-paying jobs out of Seattle to other cities in our region, like Amazon, that picked up in 2020 after the payroll tax went into effect, and they moved 10,000 jobs over to Bellevue. So this is just the natural result of going to that business saying, hey, big business, you evil bad, Jeff Bezos, tisk tisk. And of course, they're going to take jobs away. And they're just going to move them to somewhere that appreciates the economic boost that they bring. So you have this going on in Seattle. Again, not a surprise. Doesn't take, what do you call, crystal ball reader? What do you call a crystal ball reader? Is there a name
fortune
for
teller?
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
Doesn't take a fortune teller to have figured out that this was going to happen. But it's incredibly relevant that this is all coming out right now and in black and white in ways that can't be denied, and that Seattle's Democratic mayor won't deny. That the tax, cause and effect, the tax led to businesses leaving the city, therefore our revenue is down. So it's really relevant that we're having this conversation right now, and there's evidence of this right now. Why? Because as we speak, Democrats in Olympia want to take that payroll tax that Seattle has and spread it across the entire state. It was just one element of their massive tax package that they released last week, expanding the business tax. So you want to, again, so this would target out employers who pay people too much, basically, over $176,000 a year. So now we know as if it was in doubt, but for anyone who needed it, who needed to actually see the consequences of it play out. So we know exactly what happened with Seattle's payroll tax. Sure, they collected a bit of money from it in the early years of it, and then businesses started taking those high-paying jobs elsewhere. So let's really use our noodles here, okay? So what's going to happen if you take that tax that Seattle has and you make it statewide? Well, it's no longer advantageous for Amazon to simply move its jobs over to Bellevue, because jobs in Bellevue are going to be subjected to the same tax. So what is Amazon going to do with those jobs? And I'm not talking to you guys like your children. I'm talking to Democrats in Olympia like their children, because apparently they failed to comprehend this. Well, Amazon and other employers, they're going to have to take their jobs out of the entire state if the goal is to avoid the payroll tax and the punishment of daring to provide high-paying jobs to the people of Washington and to our economy. This really isn't difficult. I also think it's worth noting, because one of the other taxes on that list that Democrats proposed is the wealth tax, of course, which is we're going to single out people who have worldwide wealth over $50 million for taxation. We're going to tax them on unrealized gains. Well, you can also learn a lesson from what's happening in Seattle right now. $47 million just in Seattle alone, lower than projected. They're not collecting as much money from the tax because the people who they wanted to tax left. So let's use that logic, Democrats, okay? Let's use that logic. So what's going to happen when you pass the wealth tax? You might collect a bunch up front, but after a couple years, most of those really rich people will have found a way not to pay it. But Democrats will have already assigned all that money to things. Oh, we're going to use this wealth tax to fund this and close our budget deficit and all of this. And then all of a sudden like that, it's gone. You think that they'll just say, okay, well, we'll just take back that new spending. No, they're going to come to you for the money. Let's just say there's $200 million towards education from the wealth tax. And they say, oh, this is great. We're expecting this much revenue to come in. We're going to pay for education, this project, that project, slip some money to our friends in the unions. And then all of a sudden the next year, well, those rich people left. So we don't have that tax revenue anymore. You think they're just going to be like, hey, unions, we can't give you that money this time. Take that money back from education, from this project. Hell no, they don't do that. I mean, we're watching them not do that actively right now. They have a $14 billion budget deficit, and all they want to do is raise taxes so they can continue to spend everything they're already spending and more. So what they're going to do is they're going to pass wealth taxes and taxes on big businesses. That revenue is going to decline over time as businesses leave and rich people leave. And who is left holding the bag? Who? You, of course. You're going to be left holding the bag for it. And they're going to come to you, and they're going to increase property taxes, and they're going to increase gas taxes, and they're going to find every which way to take that money out of hardworking people, because they're not going to cut anything. And again, this is not my opinion. This is just what's going to happen, and it's what's happening right now in the city of Seattle. And I would also say, similar to what's going on in Olympia, when Bruce Harrell comes out and says, well, we made $47 million less than we thought. What do you think that Seattle's going to do about it? This is the example, right? I'm giving you guys literally a real world example, all the receipts at a city level of what's going to happen statewide. What do you think Bruce Harrell says they need to do about it? because they're collecting less revenue than they expected because all the businesses left. They have to raise your taxes. Oh gosh, okay. He said, as we develop the city's 2026 budget, my office will consider all options, including additional revenue sources, which is taxes. So again, I feel like I don't want to like beat this. What is it? What is the phrase PETA doesn't want me to use? Beat a dead horse. I'm going to use it anyway. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but I really do need to talk to these people like they're 3 years old. Everything that just happened in Seattle. Past attacks, people warned you about what would happen. You didn't listen. What people warned you about happened. And now you can't collect the money from the rich people and the big businesses. So now you're going to go reach into the pockets of the poor and the middle class. You guys are horrible. Horrible. You're helpless.